viewers, we have been discussing the determination of ring size of glucose, and in my previous lecture I had discussed the methylation method to determine the size of the glucose ring, and we found that the glucose ring is a 6-membered ring and we call it as a pyranose ring, and it is named, it can be, now we also know that this ring structure exists in two forms, the alpha form and the beta form. That is, these are the two anomers. So we call them as alpha or beta D plus glucopyranose. So alpha indicates the orientation of the OH, that is, if OH and CH2OH group are on the opposite side, they are trans to each other, the anomer is known as alpha, and if they are cis to each other, they are known as beta. Then you know that this capital D indicates that the OH is on the right hand side at the highest numbered asymmetric carbon in open chain form. Plus indicates that the molecule is dextrorotatory. Gluco indicates that we are talking of glucose, and pyranose indicates that we have a ring structure is that of pyrene, and Ose indicates that it is a carbohydrate. So now if I pick up the thread from where I left, that is, I have already discussed the Haworth method, that is the methylation method, to discuss the size of the ring, and we've established by that method that glucose exists as a 6-membered ring, that is the pyranose ring. But there's another method also which is known as periodic acid oxidation, which was given by Hudson, and it very clearly again proves that glucose exists as a 6-membered ring. So now picking up the thread from there, I will discuss the second method for determination of size of glucose ring, that is periodic oxidation. So when we talk of this ring, when I establish the structure of the ring, but before establishing the structure of the ring, that is the size of the ring, I would like to discuss the periodic acid oxidation in carbohydrate chemistry. And before we do the periodic oxidation for cyclic structure, to establish the cyclic structure of glucose, that is how many atoms are present in the ring, we should study the course of reaction taking place in some simple examples as to understand the concept of what is periodic oxidation and how does the bond cleavage take place. So this reaction was basically introduced by Malaparade in 1928, and he demonstrated that periodic acid reacts with ethylene glycol to produce iodic acid and formaldehyde. That is, he demonstrated that if we have aldiols or triols or polyhydric molecules in which OH group is present on adjacent carbon atoms, then the reaction will take place in such a way that oxidative cleavage will take place, as you can see on your screens, that the bond between the carbons is cleaved and we get two fragments, and this hydrogen, the two molecules, two atoms of hydrogens are removed along with water molecule, that is, we get iodic acid and water. So this reaction is quite intricate, but now we have to make it very simple. So my effort will be to make it simple so that you understand it better. So this is the overall reaction, and here these can be R groups or these can be hydrogens. For here, let us say that these two groups, which here it is hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen and hydrogen, and it undergoes, this molecule undergoes oxidation per iodic acid when it undergoes oxidative cleavage. Oxidative cleavage means that the bond between these two carbons will be cleaved and each fragment will be oxidized to the corresponding carbonyl group. So what we see now, so that means, what do we say, that the oxidation of so that means now the compounds that have hydroxyl groups on adjacent atoms will undergo oxidative cleavage when they are treated with aqueous periodic acid. So in this reaction, what will happen? As I've already said, that the bond between the carbon atoms which are containing the hydroxyl groups will break, and each fragment will be oxidized to corresponding aldehyde, ketone or acid, depending on the nature of the substituent present. So we can now say that the oxidation of adjacent diols with periodic acid or its salts in aqueous solution is now known as Malaparade reaction. So before I go on to simplify the reaction, let us see what is the mechanism of this reaction. As I've already indicated, that in simplified manner we will break the bond between the two carbons containing the hydroxyl groups and oxidize each fragment to a carbonyl compound or to an acidic group, acid, formic acid, or to carbon dioxide, and it will depend on the nature of the substituents present in the diols. But before going on to that, let us see what is the mechanism of the reaction. So in this reaction, what is believed, a cyclic intermediate is formed. So in this case, I have assumed that R1, R2, R3 and R4 are hydrogens. That is, we are carrying out the reaction of ethylene glycol with HiO4, that is periodic acid. But look into the structure of periodic acid. What we find here, that iodine is attached to 3 oxygens by double bonds, and then it is attached to a hydroxyl group by a single bond. So, but nevertheless, this iodine is electrophilic in nature, and this oxygen of the hydroxyl group is nucleophilic. Since it is electrophilic, this oxygen makes a bond with this iodine, as a result of which these pi electrons move on to this oxygen. So this oxygen now picks up a proton from here, and we get this structure here, right? And the bond is being formed through this oxygen to iodine, and this O has been converted into OH. Now similarly, the same reaction takes place here, that iodine being electrophilic is attacked by the second hydroxyl group, that is the lone pair of electrons on oxygen, and now these electrons move on to this oxygen, which becomes which will then, the negative charge on this will pick up a proton from here, and this O will again be converted into OH, and we will get a bond here, which I have shown in the next slide. So this is the cyclic intermediate which we get. Now since this is unstable, what will happen? A water molecule will be eliminated from here. Now the reaction starts from here, that this oxygen will, now the weakest bond in this cyclic intermediate is the bond between oxygen and iodine. So this bond cleaves, and these electrons move towards iodine. And when these bonds move towards iodine, this oxygen becomes electron deficient. So this bond cleaves and it drops here, and we get a double bond here, that is, we get R1, R2, C double bond O. And at the same time now, this bond between iodine and oxygen cleaves, and it becomes a double bond here, that is C double bond O, resulting in the formation of R3, C double bond O, R4. So we get 2 carbonyl groups. So this looks to be quite complicated. But please remember, we don't have to do the mechanism. They are not going to ask you the mechanism. But you should be familiar, because you would ask me, or you would ask yourselves as to how are we getting how is the bond cleaving here, and how are these 2 groups, the hydroxyl groups which were present in the original molecule, being converted into carbonyl groups. So this is the mechanism. So you just have to be familiar with the mechanism of the reaction. So what we find, that when we carry out the reaction with periodic acid, we observe that we had broken a carbon-carbon bond, and for cleavage of each carbon-carbon bond, a carbonyl bond is being formed at each carbon. And now what we find, that bonds between adjacent carbon atoms containing the hydroxyl groups are cleaved. This is what you observed. And now, depending on the nature of the fragment, carbonyl products are formed, and what will be the nature of the fragment will depend upon the will depend upon the substituents attached to the carbons which are containing the hydroxyl groups. So in general, you have to remember, and this will really help you, you have to summarize this, that if it is a primary hydroxyl group, that is, if the hydroxyl group is attached to a carbon which is at the terminal, then it will be converted into a aldehyde, that is formaldehyde. And if the hydroxyl group is attached to a secondary carbon, that is, it is somewhere in between two carbons which are containing the hydroxyl groups, then that group, secondary hydroxyl group, will be converted into an acidic group, and we will get formic acid. And if it is an aldehyde group, that is, it will always be at the first carbon, it will again be converted into formic acid. And if the group is ketonic, that is, if the group is coming sandwiched between two groups which are having alcoholic groups attached to it, between two carbons to which the alcoholic groups are attached, then it will be converted into carbon dioxide. So this is the most important table in the whole lecture, which will tell us as to which group will be converted into which. So if it is a terminal hydroxyl group, it will be converted into formaldehyde. If it is a hydroxyl group which is secondary, which is sandwiched between two hydroxyl groups, it will be converted into formic acid. If it is an aldehyde group, then you know that when we carry out the oxidation of aldehydes, they are converted into acids, so we will get formic acid. And if it is a ketonic group, then of course it will be oxidized into carbon dioxide. So now I've taken these three examples and demonstrated as to how the groups will be converted into which group. So when there are three or more CHOH groups which are contiguous, that is, the internal was, that is, they are one after the other, that is, they are attached to adjacent carbon atoms, then the one which is in the center will be converted into formic acid. For example, if I talk of oxidation of glycerol, it will give us two equivalents of formaldehyde and one equivalent of formic acid. How? Now see, what you have to remember is, it's very simple. We do not have to see what the mechanism is, just cleave the bonds between the carbons containing the hydroxyl groups. So you've cleaved the bond here, you've cleaved the bond here, and what we've seen, that we've got three fragments. Now when we've got three fragments, we know that if it is a primary hydroxyl group like this, it will be converted into formaldehyde. If it is a secondary alcoholic group, it will be converted into acid, and if it is again a primary alcoholic group, it will be converted into an aldehyde, that is formaldehyde. That means what you have to remember is that this will undergo one oxidation, that is, I will add a OH here. So if one carbon is attached to this OH, and now we know if two OH are attached to the same carbon, it will be unstable and water molecule will be eliminated, we will get formaldehyde. Since it is in the center and the two valencies are vacant here after the fragmentation, you will add one OH here, one OH here, we have three OH here now, it is unstable, remove a water molecule, you will get formic acid. Similarly, this will be converted into formaldehyde. Now we go on to dihydroxyacetone. Now if we look into dihydroxyacetone, what do we find? In dihydroxyacetone, we have a primary hydroxyl group here, again we have a primary hydroxyl group here, and we have a carbon dioxide here, a ketonic group here. So what do? We will fragment this, we will cleave the bonds between the carbons containing the hydroxyl group and between this containing a carbonyl group. So when we do so, we are getting one fragment, we are getting second fragment, we are getting third fragment. So what you have to remember now is, here the valency of carbon is 3. So what you will do is, you will remove the H, the lone pair as proton, the lone pair of oxygens will go into back bonding and we will get a aldehyde, that is formaldehyde. Or you can remember that is when we break the bond here, we are going to add OH here. And when two OH, when they are attached to the same carbon molecule is unstable, we will remove a water molecule, we will get formaldehyde. Similarly, in this case, when we break it, what we find that we have to satisfy two valencies. So when we do that, we'll add a OH here, we'll add a OH here, we will remove water molecule, and what will we get? We will get carbon dioxide here. And similarly here, as I've explained in this case, we will get formaldehyde here. So in case, what you have to remember, you just memorize that table. That is very simple. That is, if it's a primary hydroxyl group, it will be converted into formaldehyde. If it is a ketonic group, it will be oxidized into carbon dioxide. And again, if it is a primary hydroxyl group, it will be converted into formaldehyde. So now we have to see what are the products that we will get if we bring about periodic oxidation of D-glucose, D-mannitol or D-fructose, and what are the different products that we will get. So this will depend upon the nature of the carbons containing the hydroxyl groups and also the nature of the carbonyl group. Say for example, in glucose we will have 5 hydroxyl groups, out of which 4 will be secondary, 1 will be primary, and 1 is the carbonyl group, is the aldehyde group. When we talk of mannitol, we have that means we are getting mannitol by reduction of glucose. So in that case we will have hydroxyl groups. And when we talk of fructose, fructose will have 2 primary hydroxyl groups, along with we will have secondary hydroxyl groups, and the carbonyl group here will be keto. So depending upon these groups, we will get the different products. So when we talk of the periodic oxidation for glucose, what you will find that, as I've already told you in the beginning, that the CHO group, that is the aldehyde group, will be converted into formic acid. We are breaking this bond. The secondary alcoholic group will be converted into formic acid. Again we have 4 secondary alcoholic groups here, 1, 2, 3 and 4. That means all the 4 groups will be oxidized into formic acid, and this is a primary hydroxyl group here. So that means we will get a aldehyde. So that means that when we carry out periodic oxidation of glucose, that is normal glucose, the open chain structure of glucose, we will get 5 molecules of formic acid and 1 molecule of formaldehyde. Similarly, if periodic oxidation is carried out of mannose or of galactose, then you have to remember that these are epimers. That is, mannose is epimer of glucose C2 and galactose is epimer of glucose C4 epimer. So here we are not looking into the configuration of the molecule as to what is the orientation of the OH at each carbon. We are talking of the periodic oxidation. So all the 3, whether we do periodic oxidation of glucose, mannose or galactose, you will get 5 molecules of formic acid and 1 molecule of formaldehyde. Now on the screens you can see I have shown that this CHO group will undergo 1 oxidation. So that means we are adding 1 OH here. Now this CHOH is sandwiched between 2. So what will happen? It will react with 2H. It will undergo oxidation twice, OH on one side and OH on one side. Similarly, this will also undergo oxidation twice. 4th will also undergo oxidation twice. 5th will also undergo oxidation twice. And the 6th one will only undergo once. So what you have to remember in this case, we can do it, we are discussing it in a different manner now, that if it is a terminal group, only it will undergo 1 oxidation. We know that when we carry out oxidation of an aldehyde, it is converted into carbonyl group. And when we carry out oxidation of a primary alcoholic group, it will undergo, primary alcoholic group will be converted again into an aldehyde, which can again be oxidized to a carboxylic acid. So it will undergo 2 oxidations here. So it will lose a water molecule and will be converted into formic acid. So what are we getting here? We are using 5 equivalents of periodic acid, and we are getting 5 equivalents of formic acid and 1 equivalent of formaldehyde. If this is what we are getting, that means our original structure is that of glucose. Now if we go on to fructose, what do we find in fructose? That fructose has one primary hydroxyl group here and a second hydroxyl group here. So you have to remember that if there is a hydroxyl group, it will be oxidized to an aldehyde group. So what are we getting here? We are getting formaldehyde. If we have a carbonyl group, which is a ketonic group, it will be converted to carbon dioxide, and then again we have 2 secondary alcoholic groups which will be converted into your formic acids. 1, 2 and 3, and we will get 3 formic acids. That means when we carry out the periodic oxidation of D-fructose, we will get 2 molecules of formaldehyde, 1 molecule of carbon dioxide and 3 molecules of formic acid. So again, I have discussed this in detail. If you want to go through it, that this will undergo only oxidation once. We will add OH here one time. This carbonyl group, the ketonic group, will undergo oxidation twice, one here and one here. It will be converted into 2 hydroxyl groups will be attached here. So a water molecule will be eliminated when we will get carbon dioxide. Then we are adding OH on this side and OH on this side, which will then we will remove the water molecule and we will get formic acid. So similarly, each bond can be cleaved and we will get the products. But to summarize this, to make it simple, what you have to remember is that is the primary alcoholic group, we will break the bond between these two. The primary alcoholic group will be oxidized to formaldehyde. A ketonic group will be oxidized to carbon dioxide. This group, which is your secondary alcoholic groups, at the 3rd, 4th and 5th carbon, they will be oxidized again to formic acid, and then this group, which is a primary alcoholic group, will be oxidized to formaldehyde. So we will get 2 molecules of formaldehyde, 3 molecules of formic acid and 1 molecule of formic acid, 1 molecule of carbon dioxide when we carry out the periodic oxidation of formic acid of fructose. Now if we go on to D-mannitol, what do we find in D-mannitol? This we've obtained by reduction of glucose or by reduction of mannose. So on reduction, the CHO group has been reduced to a primary alcoholic group. So in this case, now you have to remember that CH2OH will be converted to formaldehyde, and these 4 secondary alcoholic groups will be converted into carboxylic acids, that is formic acids. I believe by now you should be able to do these problems. So what you have to remember is that if there are 2 hydroxyl groups on adjacent carbons or even more, what you have to remember that we will cleave the bonds between the carbons containing the hydroxyl groups, and then we will oxidize each fragment to the respective molecule, respective product. That is, if the group is primary, we will get an aldehyde. If the alcoholic group is secondary, as in this case, we will get formic acid. And if we have a carbonyl group which is ketonic, then ketonic will be oxidized to carbon dioxide, and if it is an aldehyde group, it will again be oxidized to formic acid. So in all these reactions, 1 mole of periodic acid is used for each pair of adjacent alcohol groups or oxo groups. So what we've seen here we were using 1. In this case, we will use 2 moles. Here this will undergo oxidation twice. This will undergo again oxidation twice. This will undergo oxidation twice, and this will undergo oxidation once. Now the question is that by estimating the number of periodic molecules used and the number of formaldehyde and formic acid formed, we can find out the number of free adjacent OH groups in a sugar molecule. So now we have to carry out the oxidation of the ring structure. So this ring, as I've already said, can give us a 5-membered ring like this, which is a furanose structure, or glucose can undergo hemiacetal formation to give us a 6-membered ring, which is a pyranose structure. So please remember that periodic acid does not cleave those compounds in which the hydroxyl group is separated by a methylene group, and also the hydroxyl groups which are adjacent either to an acetyl linkage or a ether linkage are not oxidized. So if we have a grouping like this group will not be cleaved. We will not be able to cleave because it is not a diol, that is in which the OH is attached to adjacent carbon atoms. And similarly here also this will not undergo oxidation because the carbon to which OH is attached to a methoxy group. So now when we look into the simple sugar, it will degrade completely. But when we look into the oxide ring structure, that is whether it is a pyranose ring or a furanose ring, it is sufficiently stable to resist opening by this reagent, and the ether and the acetyl groups are unaffected by it. So what we now do, we convert alpha or beta D-glucopyranose is converted to alpha D plus D-glucoside to ascertain the structure of the ring. So what we do, as we've discussed in the previous lecture, we reflux glucose with methanol and HCl, which on methylation will give us a methyl glucoside. And now when this methyl glucoside is treated with HiO4, it was found that it liberates formic acid and a dialdehyde is formed, and the formation of formic acid is possible if the glucose will exist as a pyranose structure. So the products containing, we'll see the products just now, the products will contain a C4, C5 and a C6 in the same in the molecule, and this will imply that the ring is a 6-membered ring, and it is bonded through the oxygen on the 5th carbon, that is the aldehyde group, and the carbon on the 5th carbon is bonded through oxygen, that is the hydroxyl group at the 5th carbon is taking part in bond formation. So now you know that we have to, why did I explain all this? So that you can bring about the cleavage easily. Now we find that the hydroxyl groups here are on the adjacent carbon atoms, so we will cleave the bond from here. And similarly, we find that these two hydroxyl groups are here at the adjacent carbon atoms, so bond will be cleaved from here. When bond will be cleaved from here, we find OH will come here and the second OH will come here. So water molecule will be eliminated and this will be converted into formic acid. And this, when we are adding OH here, this will be converted into an aldehyde group, and this will also be converted into an aldehyde group. We'll get a dialdehyde. As I've already said, that this will not undergo periodic oxidation, and this will also not undergo periodic oxidation here, because here we have a carbon, that these two groups, this bond will not cleave from here, because we do not have a OH group here. So the other product would be a dialdehyde, which will contain these carbons here, that is 4th, 5th and 6th carbon. And when we carry out the hydrolysis of this product, we will get diglyceraldehyde, glyoxal, methanol and formaldehyde. So the formation of formic acid and this product, which is getting 4th, 5th, which is having 4th, 5th and 6th carbon in it, clearly indicates that the ring is having 6-membered. If it was having 5-membered ring, it would have given us formaldehyde, and we find that it would have been a furanose structure. But when the periodic oxidation of a glucose ring was carried out, we got formic acid. Formaldehyde was not formed. So this clearly indicates that if it was having a 5-membered ring, that means the bond should have cleaved from here. We would have got formaldehyde here, and then the bond would have cleaved from here, which would have given us this dialdehyde. So this was not the case. So it clearly proves that glucose has 6-membered ring. So by these two methods, that is by Haworth method, that is the methylation method, and by periodic oxidation, it has been clearly proved that the glucose molecule has 6-membered ring. And for this you can further consult the books by Bruce, McMurray John, Finar, Morrison and Boyd and Solomon. Thank you.